So we say, okay, this person is over the age of 60, we take it off the shelf, and they're from this part of the world, and they grew up with this education, so I put them in this slot in my mind, and that helps me as a point of reference as to how I'm going to interact. We have to resist that. There's a great book actually called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I recommend everyone read. You'll breeze through it. Fantastic read about behavior and patterns and epidemics, social epidemics and how they occur. And then it talks about this. We have a tendency to compartmentalize. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it could be bad. We just have to be smarter to be able to put up a wall when it starts creating prejudice. Okay, just because you know someone's a hayastan, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But you know, if you hear someone using it as a negative thing, you should be the first one, younger people, adults alike, to stand up for it and say that's not right. I remember, I'll admit to something I never had before. By the way, how many of you thought I was a Barskahai at one point or another? Some hands go. Everyone thinks I'm a Barskahai because of the way I speak Armenian. I roll my R's. It's a tendency Armenian Gahais have. Rafi does as well, right? We have soft R's, Barev. And the reason is because when I was in college, I was adopted by a pack of wild Barskahais who taught me Armenian. But I'm actually not. If you heard me earlier, I'm part Hunahai, Gesaratsi, Yerusavemsi, a conglomerate of all these things, and I was born in Boston. But what I want to say is that I remember one time I had this frustration at an ASA meeting in college. This was at UCLA. My Barskahai friends would not come to the meetings. You know, they just would not. You know, we'd have these great lectures, we'd have Homenetmen or someone else, you know, and my Barskahai friends were not coming. These were my friends, RT and RB, the list goes on. So I went home and I told my dad, I go, why is it that the Barskahais are not interested in their culture? They seem so apathetic. Keep in mind I was a Miami, like, you know, head in the clouds, a teenager at that time. And my dad said, you will never ever say that again. Did you know that the author Rafi was Barskahai? And I knew about Rafi because I'd been reading about Rafi in my Armenian history class, and about Khent and about Samvel and all the other excellent. He's like, for the non-Armenians in the group, he's like the seminal historical Armenian author. He wrote about the plight of the Armenians in the Ottoman Empire as it was happening. Probably the closest thing we have to Victor Hugo or Charles Dickens. Phenomenal. I mean, that's why there are so many Rafis, by the way, because they're all named after this guy, not because of, you know, Raphael or whoever. And I said, I did. And then he went on this list of famous Barskahais and everything that they've contributed. And I opened my eyes. And I made a point at that. I consciously, every time now, make it a point to not prejudge a group based on where they come from. It's not about where you're from, it's about where you're at right now. And it doesn't matter if we came from Baghdad, Tehran, Libanon, Beirut, or wherever. We're all in Glendale now. We're all in the United States, and we all have to get along and persevere and make sure that we survive somehow.
As we're running out of time, we'll take only 2 more questions.
I'll be brief, Ardishes. So, you know, some of us not so young in this, so you can't feel our legs anymore. We as members of our communities, Beirutahais, Barskahais, or Iraqahais, what can we do, or what can we do better to improve our position at the local government and make sure that our voices are heard at the local government or at the state level? Or what are the activities that we can get involved?
Tuesday is April 5th, this Tuesday, go out and vote. That's the first thing you can do. The other thing is encourage your young, and I'll let Rafi answer this because Rafi was one of my mentors. When I was a student at UCLA, the issue happened with the Turkish chair. The Turkish government tried to donate money to UCLA to establish a Turkish studies chair. It wasn't that I was against having Turkish studies at UCLA, I was against having it funded by the Turkish government, which denies the genocide. So after that, I had an opportunity. After we were able to reject the money, I was given multiple offers to go to Washington, D.C. and intern on Capitol Hill for Congressman Frank Pallone, who was the co-chair of the Armenian Issues Caucus. When I went there, one of the first people who I ran into was Rafi Hampartian, who was working on the Hill at the time. He took me to lunch. We talked about my goals, my aspirations. I had no interest in running for office at the time. I just went because I wanted to see what the capital of my country was like, how Congress worked, to have a better understanding. I had a natural curiosity in college. I'll tell you what I saw was an appallingly low number of Armenians involved in our nation's public affairs. There was, you know, we knew all the Armenians who worked in Congress on Capitol Hill, and to this day, unfortunately, that number has only increased incrementally because the Armenian National Committee is one of the only organizations, and to some part also the Assembly, that are, but much greater extent the ANC, who are encouraging youth to go to Washington, D.C. and work and gain that experience. We need to do that more. We need to encourage our youth to go to Washington, D.C., Sacramento, be exposed to the power centers of our country, to understand how politics works, and most importantly, as parents, set an example by voting, telling your friends and your neighbors, and tell them that's important to vote, because you'll set an example. Because otherwise, you know, there's that saying that if you're not interested in politics, politics will be interested in you, and we're certainly seeing the effects of that in Glendale today, as we've seen a number of steps we've had to take back as a community in terms of representation, in terms of our voices being heard. And I'm not ashamed in saying this, or do I care that it's being video recorded, because I see every day how individuals will come to city council meetings who want to express their opinions, but are limited in language and communication abilities, and how the city struggles or sometimes turns a blind eye to giving these people a voice or access, or making them feel like they're being heard. You know, we have folks that are making steps forward in that regard. The police department obviously has made efforts to have more Armenian-speaking officers. I'd like to see some of the non-Armenian officers learn Armenian, no pressure, but I'm just teasing. But it starts with us at home participating, and on April 5th, make sure you go out and you vote. Rafi, I know you have something to add. If you don't, I'm going to make you add it because you got me involved in politics.
I just have 3 quick points. Woody Allen said 90% of life is just being there. So if it's a matter of interning in a local congressional office, state assembly, get in there, right? Tashki Vada. Don't be a spectator, be in the arena. That's one. And then actually the second point I conclude with is I would encourage sharing information about American democracy, right? My love of public affairs started with, quite honestly, a love affair with the American Revolution. Learning about, and I grew up in the towns where George Washington and Cornwallis would battle each other across the mid-Atlantic states. Teach your kids about the American Revolution, about the Constitution, about the Declaration of Independence. These are awesome documents. These are great documents, and they form the foundation of how we govern ourselves today. If you understand that, I'm not saying your son or daughter is going to turn into a C-SPAN junkie and is going to be watching C-SPAN 24/7, but they'll come to appreciate American democracy, and just maybe, right, whether you lead by example or they get turned on to it by someone else, they'll gain an appreciation and want to be part of American democracy, which is not only rewarding, but it can actually be a lot of fun.
Good evening. My name is Hilda April. My son is a scout. It's a wonderful and great organization.
Close, please.
I'm very proud to be part of it. The question I have, what other type of programs are out there that you would recommend that would aid our young people with the guidance and directions?
I will allow, at least, the question was what type of programs are out there. Everyone here will make recommendations. I will say just for my own office, as city clerk, I'm always seeking interns. We love young, bright people who are willing to work for free for many, many hours, devote of their time. You gain experience. You cannot put a price on experience. Okay, guys? It's priceless. So we accept interns. I would like to have interns. I'd like to have be in a position where I'm turning them away. Unfortunately, we don't have enough applying right now at the moment. That's number one. Number two, the city has summer work programs through the Parks and Recreation Department. If you have experience of being a scout or in Homenetmen with sports and athletics, you help coach or look after younger children in group activities, there's always a need for that. The recreational director, I believe, is a job that, the title of the job, it's available if you apply through the programs, through the job site on the city on the website. And there's a number of other things as well, but I know that police has programs, Peter was in some participant in, and others.
Most organizations will have volunteer programs. That wasn't simply, our organization has it, fire department has it, hospitals have it, libraries have it, the courts have it. So whatever interests that the youth have, there's always a program out there where they can go, be mentored, be introduced, and basically have an opportunity to show themselves, prove themselves in that industry.
That should do it. I can tell you the relationships that I've seen that have been cultivated and developed, specifically in this chapter. My wife is from this chapter, and 20 of her friends, 20 of her close friends are now close friends of mine. And I don't want to give out their ages, they're younger than me, but last time my wife was a chum puppet for Scouts was 1992. And these people still talk to each other, some of them every day, and most of them every week, and all of them every couple of weeks. I think, whether it's in the sports division of Homenetmen or the Scouts division of Homenetmen, and I'm just tickled to know that we have another get thrown a couple blocks north of here. That would be north, right, Sergeant? Yes. And since we don't turn anybody down, that's what I heard our leaders say at the press conference. I encourage all of you to ask others to come and join and make the 1,600 members into 16,000 members of Homenetmen. That's it.
I would conclude by saying that ANC has internships both here in Los Angeles. We have internships in our San Francisco office, internships on the East Coast out of our New York offices, and we have internship in Washington, D.C. And we also have another program, which is when young Armenian Americans graduate college, the ANC will pay for their housing in Washington, D.C. and help them, work with them, either life coach, establish a fine resume and find a job in Washington, D.C. We clearly have an eye on investing in our youth, like Warren Buffett, like the folks who invested in this organization decades ago. That's where you put your money, and that's where you will achieve dividends.